The cafeteria was nearly empty that late afternoon. Chairs were scattered, trays piled high on corners of tables, and the smell of stale fries hung heavy in the air. A janitor's cart squeaked as it rolled across the linoleum floor, its single loose wheel announcing every movement like a cry for attention. And there, in the corner, was a little girl, no more than 7 or 8 years old, struggling to lift a mop twice her size. Her tiny hands gripped the wooden handle, her head bowed low, strands of dark brown hair falling into her face as she scrubbed the floor with the persistence of someone who had known far too much hardship for her age. Just then, a man walked in with his young son. They had only stopped by to grab a quick meal after a long day, but fate had other plans. The boy, about the same age as the little girl, froze mid-step. His wide hazel eyes followed her every move, confusion and recognition etched across his innocent face. He tugged on his father's sleeve and whispered in a voice loud enough to pierce the quiet room, "Daddy, she looks like me." The father's heart clenched. His gaze shifted from his son to the little girl, and for a moment, he felt as though the ground beneath him might give way. The resemblance was undeniable, the same delicate nose, the same soulful eyes, the same wayward strands of chestnut brown hair. It was like looking at a reflection of his son, only in the form of a tired, burdened girl carrying the weight of a world she never chose. Before we continue this emotional journey, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us of the power of compassion, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Stories. Your support helps us spread these heartfelt stories to more people around the world. The father, named Daniel, tried to shake off the eerie feeling, but the image of the little girl stayed with him as he and his son took a seat. His son, Ethan, however, couldn't stop staring. He was usually a cheerful child, always bouncing with energy, but now his expression was heavy with thought. Daniel distracted him with food, but Ethan whispered again, "Daddy, why is she cleaning? She looks sad." Daniel didn't know how to answer. As they ate, Daniel observed quietly. The girl's clothes were faded, a size too big, her shoes scuffed and worn. Her face, though weary, still held traces of childhood innocence. She shouldn't have been cleaning floors, she should have been in school, laughing, playing, maybe even sitting in a cafeteria like this one, eating lunch with friends. Daniel's mind raced, wondering what story lay behind those tired eyes. Later, as he was leaving, he noticed the girl kneeling by the trash bin, picking up crumpled wrappers with her bare hands. He felt a sharp pang in his chest. Something about her seemed hauntingly familiar, as if she were a ghost from his past. But he couldn't place it. He held his son's hand tighter and walked out, but Ethan turned back, waving to the girl. She hesitated, then gave a small, shy wave in return. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. The image of the little girl haunted him. He had grown up with struggles of his own, raised by a single mother who had worked herself to the bone just to put food on the table. Seeing that child scrubbing floors ignited something deep within him, an ache that refused to fade. And yet, beneath that ache was something else, a strange pull, a question he couldn't silence. Why did she look so much like Ethan? The next day, Daniel returned to the cafeteria, alone this time. He spotted the girl again, sweeping near the counter. Summoning courage, he approached one of the workers and asked about her. The worker sighed, lowering her voice. The girl's name was Lily. Her mother worked double shifts as a cleaner, and sometimes Lily helped after school, or instead of school, because they couldn't afford childcare. They lived in a small rented room downtown, barely surviving. Daniel's heart twisted as he listened. The story hit too close to home. But then the worker added something that froze him in place. Lily's father was never in the picture. He had left before she was even born. The words echoed in his mind like thunder. A single mother. A child who looked almost identical to his son. Memories from 8 years ago clawed their way back, memories Daniel had buried deep. Back then, before he settled into the life he had now, he had been reckless, lost. There had been a woman, kind, strong, full of quiet resilience. He remembered her dark eyes, her soft voice. Their paths had crossed briefly, intensely, and then he had walked away, too afraid of responsibility, too tangled in his own struggles. Could Lily be? No. The thought terrified him. He left that day, but the weight on his chest only grew heavier. For days, he wrestled with the possibility, torn between guilt and fear. He didn't want to reopen wounds, didn't want to disrupt his son's world. But every time he looked at Ethan, he couldn't shake the nagging thought that somewhere out there, another child, possibly his child, was living a life of hardship while his own son lived in comfort. One evening, fate intervened again. Daniel was picking Ethan up from school when he saw Lily outside the gates. She was waiting quietly, her small hands clutching a plastic bag that looked like it held her lunch. Ethan spotted her and ran over, smiling brightly. "Hi. I saw you at the cafeteria." She looked surprised but smiled back, and for a moment, the two children laughed together like they had known each other forever. Daniel watched, his throat tightening. The resemblance was undeniable now. They could have been siblings. Unable to hold back any longer, Daniel followed Lily home that evening. She led him to a worn-down building, its walls cracked and weather-stained. He hesitated outside before finally knocking on the door. A woman answered, and the moment their eyes met, Daniel's world tilted. It was her, the woman from his past. Her face carried lines of exhaustion, but her eyes were the same. She recognized him instantly, and for a long moment, silence hung heavy between them. The truth spilled out in fragments. Her name was Grace. 8 years ago, their paths had crossed, and when he left, she discovered she was pregnant. She had tried to find him once, but he had already moved away. Alone and abandoned, she had raised Lily with every ounce of strength she had, sacrificing her own dreams, working endless shifts, and teaching her daughter resilience even in poverty. Daniel felt the ground crumble beneath him as guilt consumed him. He had walked away all those years ago, never knowing the life he had left behind. And now here stood the child who bore his features, who had been scrubbing floors while he had been raising another child in relative comfort. The contrast cut him deeply. He wanted to run. It would have been easier to bury the truth again. But when Lily came up to the doorway, her big eyes looking curiously at him, something inside him broke open. He knelt down, meeting her gaze. He saw Ethan's face in hers, saw his own mistakes, saw the chance to do something right. For the first time, he didn't run. The days that followed were turbulent. Grace was hesitant, guarded. She had built her life without him, and she wasn't sure she wanted him back in any form. But Daniel persisted. He began by visiting Lily after school, helping her with homework, bringing her small treats, showing her that he wasn't just another person who would disappear. Slowly, Lily's walls began to crumble. She smiled more, laughed freely with Ethan, and sometimes even called Daniel Dad by accident. Each time, the word pierced his heart with both pain and hope. For Daniel, the struggle was twofold. He had to earn Grace's trust, proving that he wasn't the same man who had once walked away. And he had to face his own son, explaining why Lily was suddenly in their lives. Ethan, with the innocence only children possess, embraced it without hesitation. "Does this mean I have a sister?" he asked one night, his face lighting up with excitement. Tears welled in Daniel's eyes as he nodded. Yes, Ethan. You do. As the weeks turned into months, a fragile new family began to form. Daniel didn't have all the answers. He couldn't undo the years of absence, couldn't erase the struggles Grace and Lily had endured. But he could be there now. He could show up, provide, protect, and love them both. He could make sure Lily never had to scrub floors again just to survive. There were nights of doubt, days of tension, but also moments of beauty that stitched their fractured lives together. Ethan and Lily, two children who had unknowingly shared blood, now shared laughter, secrets, and sibling squabbles. Grace, though cautious, began to soften, her guarded heart slowly opening to the possibility of forgiveness. And Daniel, though haunted by guilt, finally found redemption in the very family he once abandoned. The story of Lily and Daniel is not just about mistakes, it is about second chances, about the courage to face the truth, and the power of kindness to heal wounds. It reminds us that family is not always perfect, but it is always worth fighting for. If this story has touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Kindness Stories. Your support allows us to continue sharing stories that inspire compassion, forgiveness, and hope. Before we end, we have a special request. Comment below with the words, "Kindness is stronger than mistakes," if you believe that love and second chances can heal even the deepest wounds. And so, Daniel's journey reminds us all, sometimes life brings us face to face with the consequences of our choices. Sometimes it gives us another chance to do what we should have done all along. And when that chance comes, the greatest act of kindness we can give is to embrace it with open arms.